Postgame is presented by America's Navy, forged by the sea. Joe Musso alongside the two-time champ Bryant McFadden. Mac, there weren't many points of that second half where you felt like the San Francisco 49ers were moving on to play championship-level football. This was not championship-level football for them. Explain to me how they pulled this victory from the jaws of defeat.
They just, exercised the ultimate patience in this ball game because, yes, we watched this ball game from start to finish. Jordan Love seemed to be the better quarterback in this ball game. Green Bay seemed to be the better team in this ball game. But remember what I talked about during the halftime show, Joe, was the inability of the Green Bay Packers to do what? Score in the red zone area. Remember in the first half, they were 0 for 3 in the red zone. They finished the game being 2 for 5 in the red zone. These little minute mistakes, missed opportunities could be costly when you're trying to advance to the next round, especially in this environment that they participated in tonight. Not scoring in the red zone area just allowed the San Francisco 49ers to linger around, and yet and still they were a bit quiet offensively and defensively. We all knew they have the dudes that can make plays when given the opportunity. Deebo Samuel went out in the ball game. Guess who answered the call? Christian McCaffrey, 17 attempts for 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. George Kittle, 4 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. We saw big-time receptions from Jennings and some of the other guys as well. So it was a collective, when you talk about all-hands-on-deck mentality and trying to find a way to get this ball game. But if you talk about Green Bay losing this ball game, it's the red zone woes would be for me.
Yeah, it was, again, by the numbers, by the eye test. This was not the Jordan Love performance that we've seen in weeks past, but still did enough, it felt like, to get his team a win. You said it, outplayed the other quarterback in this game. Let's talk a bit about Brock Purdy, because there were questions of whether or not Purdy could get it done back against the wall in the exact scenario he just executed in. I don't know if that's a cure-all, because when you look at Purdy from a holistic standpoint in this game, when Deebo goes down, some of those inefficiencies are exposed. What did you make of the whole performance for Purdy? 23 of 39, 252 and a touchdown.
Well, I'd say for 3 quarters he didn't look comfortable. I don't know if it was more about the weather than what he was seeing defensively, from the Green Bay Packers, but he just didn't look comfortable. But he never panicked, right? He stayed the course, he stayed within the game plan, and he found ways to execute it. And also, too, Joe, the Green Bay Packers did him a few favors. They had opportunities to come in with big-time interceptions from Brock Purdy, but not catching the passes led to extra opportunities for Brock Purdy. You can't say the same for San Francisco, because when Dre Greenlaw got his hands on the football, guess what? He came down with those said opportunities, and of course that game-winning interception was the opportunity to seal the deal and put a bow in the present.
49ers have reached the conference championship in each of their past 6 playoff appearances. This is what they do. They take care of business if they need to in the wild card and then in the divisional round as well. They take care of business by the skin of their teeth in this instance. Deebo is obviously such a big part of this offense, and we saw a little bit of what this offense looks like without Deebo Samuel. We'll get to the matchups. They're hosting a playoff game. They're hosting an NFC championship game. Those things we know. As you're looking at what they need to clean up, where they need to be sharper, if they're trying to break through that ceiling that we've seen in past years, whether it's failing in that conference championship game or failing come Super Bowl Sunday, what needs to be cleaned up?
Well, I'll start with the defense, right? When you talk about the front, I mean, they have so many highly invested players on the defensive line, either first-round selections or guys that are on their second contracts getting paid handsomely. They got to find a way to sack the quarterback. They got to find a way to put pressure on the quarterback. When I look at the stat line today, 0 sacks on Jordan Love. They harassed him a little bit. They made him move a little bit in the pocket. But for the majority of the ball game, Jordan Love was able to work from within a nice, secure pocket. When you have Bosa, when you have Armstead, when you have Hargrave, when you have Chase Young, when you have Gregory, when you have Kinlaw, somebody got to get home.
You got to get home. Yeah,
that's inexcusable. Somebody has to find a way to get home, especially when they have one-on-one opportunities. That's something they need to clean up. And one thing about Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, he doesn't blitz a lot. He believes his 4 guys can put pressure on opposing quarterbacks without sending the extra hat and drop everybody else in passing lanes. Tonight, they didn't get home. Now, moving forward, regardless if they see Tampa Bay or Jared Goff, you got to find a way to get home against playoff quarterbacks, because if you don't do that, they will get in a rhythm, and it's going to make things difficult for you.
Just as it did for Aaron Rodgers Jordan Love, his first go in the playoffs against the San Francisco 49ers. It remains to be the limiting factor for this Green Bay team. 5 times in the last 11 seasons, Green Bay's year comes to an end at the hands of these very 49ers. And the Niners now heading back to the 3rd consecutive NFC title game. We'll see what it looks like in the road ahead for the Niners. But let's talk a minute about the road ahead for the Green Bay Packers here, too, because sitting at 3-6, they're minutes and plays away from a conference title game berth. To have seen this growth over the last 6 or so weeks, let's call it 2 months, what comes to mind when you look at the future of the Green Bay Packers and their quarterback as well in Jordan Love?
Well, if I had some, shades that I could borrow from Aaron Jones, usually after he scored a touchdown, I will put those shades on because their future is bright. Their future should be bright, similar to what we talked about in the first matchup with Houston and the Baltimore Ravens. Talking about the rookie head coach, DeMeco Ryans, led with the rookie quarterback, seeing how well these guys were able to gel together. One would think the future would be bright for Houston, and the same thing for the Green Bay Packers. And the reason why I say that is because Jordan Love grew before our eyes as a starting quarterback. First time we got an opportunity to see Matt LaFleur without Aaron Rodgers, to see exactly what this team would look like without Aaron Rodgers. And it's safe to say they did not miss Aaron Rodgers at all. The final 9 games, name me another quarterback that was hotter than Jordan Love. It's not a lot of names you can throw out when you talk about what he was able to do.
Yeah.
When you factor in his success, I mean, a lot of wide receivers that are not household names. You talk about Romeo Doubs, Reed, Melton. And Christian Watson was more out of the lineup than in because of his injury, but yet and still, these guys got the job done because their quarterback was putting them in positions to be successful. So when you factor in the youth movement that they currently have going on, specifically on the offensive side of things, man, look out, man. The future is bright. I understand you feel some type of way if you played for the organization, the Packers, if you rooted for the Packers as well. You wanted to win this ball game, but moving forward, you have something to hang your hat on because you found a quarterback once again.
I think
you got one.
You draw a very interesting parallel there between what we saw earlier in the day in the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud season coming to a close, and now Jordan Love's season coming to a close. Bright future ahead for both of those franchises due to those 2 individuals. An interesting stat, and we have alluded to it maybe outside of the numbers. The 49ers 0-31 went down by 5 or more points under Kyle Shanahan entering the 4th quarter. They get their first win here under Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. And we'll maybe say it that way. That's the headline. But the subscript is clearly Christian McCaffrey shows up in the exact moment he was acquired for. 105 all-purpose yards, only 7 of that through the air, 98 on the ground, a big touchdown run. How important, how imperative was it to have a back of that caliber when a guy like Debo does go down?
It's super important because what he does, I don't consider Christian McCaffrey as a running back. I consider him to be an offensive weapon because he can do so many things to help your offense. But remember, at halftime, he had, 9 carries for 33 yards, averaging roughly under 4 yards per pop. He wasn't really involved. They wasn't running lanes for him. And we saw how stagnant their offense was with CMC not being a feature guy. But when they found a way to get the running game going, you have to account for him because he means so much. He's an explosive guy. You talked about the 2 touchdowns. Remember, the first one was a long of, 30 yards or so. So whenever he has a small running lane, he can turn a 5-yard run into 10, 20, 25 at any given time. And he just kind of jump-started everything offensively because as we watched the game, as you guys watched the game, Brock Purdy didn't look real pretty. He didn't look real pretty, right? It was like, oh, it's a little shaky, a good throw here, and then you're like, oh, no moment there. But when they finally found a way to run the football, then you can start to see Brock kind of he had his Moosai moment, right? And that Moosai moment came, it was right on time because in that 4th quarter, when things were getting a little sticky, when the rain was coming down a little harder, Green Bay had momentum. You were like, okay, somebody got to make a play. Who made the play? CMC, and then, of course, Dre Greenlaw.
You got the guys, you got to lean on one of them. They had one less guy in this game, but they still get it done. The San Francisco 49ers come up big against the Packers in the final moments. They'll be hosting the NFC Championship game next Sunday. All right, here's a look at quarterbacks to start a conference championship game in each of his first 2 seasons. And we remember Brock Purdy, the way things went, and this is where he's been trying to get back to because this was the moment that not only the Niners season ended, but some quarters earlier, Brock Purdy's season ended. And lest we forget, a UCL injury. He comes back just like the Niners did in this game, a comeback victory over the Pack for a berth to the NFC title game.